What's going on, everyone? I'm Jaren, and today we are talking about Five Nights at Freddy's 2. 1 year after the events of the supernatural nightmare, Abby runs away to reconnect with her animatronic friends, uncovering dark secrets of the true origins at Freddy's and unleashing a horror that's been laying dormant for quite some time. Director Emma Tammy returns for a second slice to adapt the video game and cultural phenomenon Five Nights at Freddy's, along with the original video game developer slash author Scott Cawthon, who is also leading as head screenwriter this time around. Oh boy, I remember opening weekend, my theater going experience for that first movie where I was just surrounded by a lot of vocal and expressive fans in this packed theater, including my girlfriend Leanne and her nephew Ethan. Just how much of a fever dream it was to feel this energy that this was an event. And you know what? Critics hated it. A lot of the fans loved it. And I was sort of caught in the middle, you know. I understand the criticisms, but I also had a good time. And I was very optimistic to the promise of a sequel just becoming this compromise, this middle ground where we were going to improve upon what we saw in the first movie. It goes without saying that these movies are clearly meant for the fans. It's for the gamers, and unfortunately, I'm just not one of them. Thankfully, this time around, I decided to ask my nephew Ethan the right YouTube video to watch in order to be prepared, in order to be informed about the lore. I'm not gonna lie though, after watching that full timeline breakdown, I think it set my expectations just a little too high for this sequel. Now, after watching the movie for myself, I can honestly say that while I appreciated the much darker tone that this set the stage for, I left the theater with even more questions. I am left wanting more from this adaptation. Starting off with the positives, despite the family-friendly tone that they've established in the first film, I'm glad that they cranked the horror up a notch this time around. And the flashback in the opening sequence was something that I really wanted out of the first movie, but we get it here, and we finally get to see some of the sins of the Yellow Rabbit. I love the marionette. It is a new addition to the ensemble animatronics, and I had no idea how integral and malicious this particular character was going to impact the story. What the marionette is capable of doing that was never done in the games is actually pretty nightmarish and effectively scary. Like, there were a few jump scares pertaining to that one particular character that really got me. Just like the first movie, I praise this production for utilizing as much practical effects as possible, including the life-size animatronics of Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, Foxy, and even Springtrap. But I felt like the puppeteers and the engineers really just had their work cut out for them in this sequel, because we get double the gang. We get to see like the toy versions of them, like Toy Freddy, Toy Bonnie, Toy Chica, Toy Foxy, and they're just a little bit more robotic. They have this new polished look where their exterior shell is a lot more just sturdier and just more hard-shelled. I just commend a lot of the puppeteers and engineers who had to do a lot more work, just put in a lot more effort and elbow grease from what they did in the first movie to having these particular animatronic ensembles just up and about, having to do specific sort of actions that was just even possible to capture on camera. I mean, that's pretty awesome. But personally, I am more of a fan of the withered look, that deteriorated detail to the original suits. That was pretty cool. Josh Hutcherson's Mike may have first billing, but just like Jamie Lee Curtis in Halloween Kills, he takes more of the back seat in this installment. Abby and Vanessa, played by Piper Rubio and Elizabeth Lale, are given a lot more to do here, while Abby goes on her mission to find her animatronic friends. Vanessa, on the other hand, is struggling to come face to face with the horrors that her father, William Afton, has left behind, as well as the repercussions from beyond the grave. And while you don't necessarily condone a lot of these emotional and impulsive decisions that both characters make while keeping Mike in the dark, it does add a little bit of suspense in the fashion of a ticking time bomb. Now, getting into my mixed negatives, as someone who wasn't familiar with the original source material, read the books or played the video games, I made the mistake in going into that first movie and hoping and trusting that the filmmakers were going to bridge the gap, the narrative, to make someone as casual as I am to really get introduced to the world of Freddy Fazbear. Now, going into the second movie, I went in with the knowledge that my girlfriend Leanne and her nephew Ethan has provided for me, and it actually helped me enjoy this movie just a little bit better than I should have. Now, if you weren't a fan of the first movie and you were going into this hoping that it would be a really big improvement, this isn't going to do you any favors. This still feels like the inside joke that you're completely left out on unless you've done the homework. I mean, for the viewing experience for fans, it definitely pleases them, but for casual moviegoers, it's going to completely alienate you more. It's also no question that Blumhouse is going to grant it its franchise as long as the fans keep showing up to the movie theater and buying merch. I mean, even the Regal popcorn bucket. I mean, have you seen it? It's so cool, but it's also ridiculous. But almost every single person in my auditorium, every like 1 in 4 people had a bucket. And that was ridiculous, but that was also impressive. And while the PG-13 rating continues to water down the violence and the subject matter in the final product, I do think that the script heavily suffers from middle chapter syndrome. There are so many questions and expectations that were set up in the last entry that they continue to stall on paying off here, like Mike's long-lost brother, Garrett. And while we do have a pretty good idea on how that arc ended, the end credits from the last entry kind of implies something different, and it is never brought up here. And this leaves Mike not having much of an arc to strive for. Continuing the disconnection between script to screen, every adult in this movie, for some reason, just so happen to be assholes, especially in that opening sequence. I mean, with the exception of our main characters, just for some reason, everybody was just rude. And there's a little bit of fan service in this one sequence where Mike is in this open security room and the animatronics begin to scan and attack him. And it does look really silly unless you understand that it's an actual part of the gameplay. There were many ideas within the transition of Act 2 and Act 3 that I wanted more out of, including Fast Fest and the animatronics going on a rampage around town, but unfortunately they were short-lived. There's also this mysterious character that turns up and had a huge crowd response, and especially with how integral he was to the lore, I was hoping that they were going to flesh him out. Unfortunately, they didn't do anything with that information, and it leaves a lot of the casual viewers going, huh? Who was that? Are they important? Last but not least, I'm a huge fan of the Scream franchise, and it was pretty awesome that we got to establish Matthew Lillard as William Afton, aka Springtrap, in the first movie, and they also got Skeet Ulrich to play an integral role from the video game and gets introduced here. Now, another cinema sin that FNAF 2 commits is that Matthew Lillard has an even shorter screen presence in this, as well as Skeet Ulrich getting one 2-minute scene without so much as to unveiling who his character really is. It's not until we get to the post-credits audio clip do they finally confirm his role here. And it's not going to mean jack shit to the casual audiences because they didn't do anything with his character in this installment. I swear to God, FNAF 3 better have a scene that Lillard and Ulrich get to share, because their characters in the video game, in the lore, mean everything to the Freddy Fazbear franchise. Overall, while I like this just a hair more than the first movie, I'm still unimpressed with the writing and the direction that they went with to half-heartedly balance things here, from pleasing the fans to introducing new audiences to this world. I mean, whether they have 1 more or maybe 3 more films to make 5 installments, 5 nights, I think that they have a long way to go to make more than just an okay movie for an okay franchise. I think the fans are being hyperbolic if they want to consider this cinema, but I also am pushing back on the critics who are labeling this as the worst movie of the year, because it is not that bad. I can name you like 10 movies that have higher Rotten Tomato scores this past year that are pretty much at the bottom before we get to this. One of them is The Strangers Chapter 2. I'm looking at you. Well, alright guys, that's all I got to say about that movie. I liked it, I was still disappointed, and I'm very much looking forward to the next one. I'm Jaren and I want to thank you guys again for taking some time out of your day to hear me talk some movies. Look forward to more reviews, and I'll see you guys at the theater. Take care.
Because somebody